Hello! This is block number 2 of the Ethereal Quilt. And this is my 3rd time making this quilt, or this quilt block, so this is what it's going to look like. The Ethereal Quilt. Alright, now some of the things I'm going to do with this today is I'm going to piece it as I go along. I'll show you the piecing. The embroidery, not as exciting as me showing you how I piece. And I don't pre-cut the pieces. I just use my scraps and or pieces of fabric, and then I cut around it after I sew it on there. That's how I do that. How's everybody doing? If you're watching this later on a recording, I hope you enjoyed this. Feel free to fast forward through all the embroidery. Then I'm glad you're here. Okay, so this is on, this is set at 1,000 stitches per minute. And this whole block has 33,000 stitches. Right now the block says it's going to take an hour, but it takes longer than that because I have to stop and put the fabric and trim, and then put it back in, and then stop the thread. There's all those considerations. So that's where it is right now. And it's going to start over here with this blue, and then I'll put my fabric, and then it'll go back and sew the triangles. I have to make a total of 8 of these. Now I'm skipping the quilting portion. So right now the machine is ready to sew the quilted portion here, but I save it for later so that when I have my backing on there, this will show on both sides. So I'm going to skip that step, and I'm going to sew the orange because I already sewed this yellow on ahead of time. Right now I'd be sewing the yellow piece, but now I'm sewing the orange. If you're just joining, welcome. I'm making the Ethereal Quilt. And the link is in the previous live video that I did on this particular block. So that's where you can find the link to get the pattern. Okay, so now I'm gonna stitch the orange. But the whole point of this is to use up scraps. So this is the piece that I'm going to use for the blue square that's going to go right here. So It's just a little piece that I found in my scraps. Some of them are scraps and some of them aren't. Like, here's a full piece of fabric. But I think I'm going to change this orange to a different orange. I think I'm going to switch from this orange to this orange. Not this one. I seem to like this one better than this one. I guess it doesn't make too much difference. All right, now it's gonna sew the placement for the little blocks that make the circlet. Okay, didn't pay attention, but I don't need this right here. I could probably cut that straighter off this way. I am going to grab the blue. I'm just gonna stick it under there, make sure all the edges are covered. And I want to make sure I have enough edge out here for the seam allowance. So this part has to hang off. That's important. So now I'm gonna trim to the corner like that. And then I'm gonna trim away what's left. And same thing over here. I'm gonna trim to the corner. And trim away the excess. And I want to trim pretty close to that stitching. Oh, there's my cat. I don't know if you hear him. Yeah, you have to hear him. All right. Now I'm just going to go ahead and trim this so it's straight there. And trim this. Okay. Now I'm just going to keep going on and doing the rest, just like that. And I'm leaving the orange in here as placement stitch. Oh. I have to go back a step because the next piece I'll set on this side, because then I'm going to flip it over and sew it. You're gonna get out. I'm gonna have you stop chewing on that. All right. My cats like to chew on stuff in my room to get my attention. And it worked. It absolutely worked. Cutting off a piece of... All right, so now I'm going to put this here, and it's going to sew the seam. Next, I'm going to flip. I don't have to trim it if I don't want to, and I'm not going to. So I'm going to flip it, and I'm going to do a finger press. Okay, so that feels semi-flat. And then I'm gonna sew the square. I'm going to repeat this step. Trim this away. Probably a good idea in this step to leave a little bit more of a seam allowance here. But because I left an extra layer of cotton there, I think it'll be fine. All right, so next color is the yellow, which is this yellow right here. And I'm just gonna place this here. And yes, there is a lot of waste. And I am willing to have some waste. And I give up, or I gain time. Okay. Finger press it, and now sew the next. I'm gonna hold that. Not taut, but I'm just gonna hold it down so it's flat. And now I'm gonna cut this again. And I'll show you, like here, I can leave like a 1/4 inch seam, you know, because that's what it would be like if I were sewing it together and piecing it by hand instead of on the machine. Next color is the orange that I thought I would replace, but I might just leave it until I'm done with this round of blocks, and then I'll switch it later. Now I set that piece of fabric down and I can't find it. Let me dig. Oh, there it is. Okay. So there's my little piece. Right sides together. Okay. Now this is curved, right? So I want to make sure that when I've cut that, right, and I flip it over, it's going to have enough to cover the lines for the next step, right? So this is the seam. And this is flip. And finger press. And then I'm going to sew. And I'm just going to hold this down a bit. Get in here with my scissors, and I'm gonna trim away as closely as I can here because I'm gonna have a satin stitch right here that's gonna sew this eventually, this stitch here, and I want to make sure that this isn't too, this doesn't have any seam allowance left to it, so that this stitch will actually cover the other part. And again, here I can leave a little seam if I want to, a little seam allowance. Usually, you know, it's just kind of awkward to leave this in the machine to cut away, but that's all right. All right. Last color is pink. And I'm using this really soft, tiny pink. And see, I have this, you know, this really long fat quarter that I found in my stash. And I'm going to just line that up. And flip it over. Okay, finger press. Just like that. And then sew the last seam. And this is where I appreciate not cutting out the pieces ahead of time, because if I had not cut this or placed it correctly, then I would have had some area that wasn't covered that needed to be covered. So I'll take this out here. Trim. Okay, so I'm going to trim this. To there. And remember, I want to keep a seam allowance. Eventually I'll cut this back to 1/2 inch. So I'm going to trim this to this where the stitching ends, this corner right here. And then I'm going to just cut that straight. And now cut this piece off. And that's why, that right there is why I don't cut my pieces ahead of time. Because it might not be giving me enough seam allowance that if, like, later on something pulls or moves, there's a lot to consider as far as movement. You've got your stabilizer that can kind of shift a little bit. Now we're gonna sew these little triangles right here. And the first ones I'm gonna sew a green. I'm gonna do this green right here. Now I'm using Robinson Anton thread. I like it because it's rayon and it has this really nice sheen to it. The thing about quilting is there's lots of different ways to do it, and for many years I was a hand quilter, and I would machine piece, and I'm obsessed with this right now. And I know it's not necessarily, I guess what's difficult about this is the picking colors. Gotta pick colors for it. It's a challenge. Don't yell at me, kitty. Don't yell at me. Not time. It's not time. Not time for food. Pick that up. Come on. You think this is going to get you food faster? Well, it's not going to get you food faster. Nope. Something about the cats begging for his food. Either that or he's trying to butter me up. Keeps coming in here meowing at me and then jumps away. So when these rectangles are done, I will probably end my live since I've done the piecing, and you can see how I did the cut and sew and flip and sew, and that's pretty much how I treat the entire piecing process. So instead of cutting each piece individually and then laying it on there, I sacrifice fabric in the interest of time, and I sew and cut. I like the way this sews the little hearts. It's like a different, like, satin stitch. Stitch length is a little bit longer. So see that, how that's a little heart. It's so sweet. And when it was digitized, this right here is, oh, can't see it right here. Oh no. It's right here. Okay, so this portion is tatami stitch, and then this is satin stitch. This is satin stitch. Most of this is satin stitching, but that bit is tatami, which is more of like a flat kind of stitch. Next, purple or lavender. Gonna do this color, lavender. If you are interested in following along doing this block of the month with me, you can find the pattern on the Sweet Pea embroidery website, and it's spelled SWEETPEA. Okay. And this is block number 2. Goes again. Sew in that heart, so tatami stitch, and then a satin stitch to make the heart. I like the way the designers made that. Alright, it has 2 more triangles to go, and I'm going to end my live here since the rest of it is piecing and doing a lot more of the embroidery, which I did on the last video live that I did last week. So hope you have a great rest of your day, and feel free to follow along. Have a great day, everybody.